Hello and good afternoon, friends. Welcome to the CEC-UGC live lecture. Dear friends, in this very session of ours, today we are going to talk about India's foreign policy continuity and change. As we have discussed on this very topic earlier also, and we have raised different issues, today also we are going to get a deep insight into this very topic, and for this we have with us in our studios Dr. Rajiv Nayan. He is Senior Research Associate in Institute of Defence Studies and Analysis. And I would like to tell you about him is that he did his masters from JNU as well as a doctorate from JNU only, as well as he has done his post-doctorate from New York University. So I would like to welcome our guest, Dr. Rajiv Nayan.
Thank you very much.
Hello sir, welcome to the EduSec lecture of ours, and I would like you to give a deep insight into this very topic, that is India's foreign policy, which we are carrying out since previous sessions also.
Thank you very much. As we know that India has got its foreign policy since it got its independence. Recently we watched some news, we read some news also. Prime Minister going to Brazil, before that Prime Minister went to Bhutan. All these events, visits, raised several questions. Is the current Prime Minister going to continue the old foreign policy which was laid down by Jawaharlal Nehru and later his successors, and even when BJP was in power before? So Atal Bihari Vajpayee had his own foreign policy, and when for a brief term Janata Party came to power, the former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee was foreign minister. So all these events raise this serious question whether there is continuity or change in the foreign policy. So I am going to discuss that, whether there is any continuity and change. But before that, I would just like to say a few points about India's foreign policy. As I mentioned, India had its foreign policy ever since it got independence. That time, when we got independence, we had the background of our freedom struggle. Our leaders were quite well educated, and they had their own vision of the world. And in fact, that vision of the world guided and shaped the independent India's foreign policy. As a result, we thought, what would be the nature of India's foreign policy? What should it do? Should it just promote something foreign, or should it promote something national? So this was one big question, one big dilemma before the policymakers of that time. But one continuity and one, you can say, bedrock of India's foreign policy is that it has to promote India's national interest. The promotion of India's national interest became the real objective of India's foreign policy. It was visualized by then Prime Minister Nehru and later his successors, all. It includes Mrs. Gandhi and Atal Bihari Vajpayee, all. So we have all the Prime Ministers supporting India's national interest and shaping foreign policy to promote this national interest. So now comes the question, what is this national interest? And this national interest, definition of national interest, has been one of the biggest challenges of India's foreign policy. We can say that security interest, economic interest, cultural interest, political interest, all these constitute India's national interest. Then comes the question, what is our security interest? And how we promoted this interest through our foreign policy from the very beginning. So one issue is what is our security element of foreign policy? We wanted that India should not join any alliance, and we believed that non-alignment should be the bedrock of our foreign policy. It provided security. Several countries joined different alliances at that time during the Cold War, which has started more or less when India got its independence. And at that time there was Eastern Bloc, there was Western Bloc, countries were joining blocs, and our neighbor like Pakistan, also joined a different kind of bloc. This is called Baghdad Pact and Southeast Asian Treaty Organization, SEATO. So, but India did not join all these blocs, and they said its security doesn't lie in joining any of the blocs. It has to stay away from any bloc politics, and it chose non-alignment. So, this was the real one of the, you can say, foundation stones of Indian foreign policy, not aligning with either of the dominant blocs of the time. And India continued this policy more or less, but that does not mean that India will not take care of its security interest in other way. So, India, as India was not self-sufficient or self-reliant in defense production, so it went to some other countries for supply of arms, and initially it looked towards United States and Western Bloc, and later it went to the Soviet Union for the supply of its arms. And 1971 famous treaty which provided several benefits to Indian security and Indian security interests. So, like that, so we are, on the one hand, we had to strike a very delicate balance, not joining any bloc to secure our security interests, at the same time provide security to our citizens, our people. We have to go for arms, we have to buy arms. So, we went for purchase of arms to different countries. So, this is not anything paradoxical. So, this was one of our basic elements of security foreign policy. Later on, there were other elements which were also added, and one of the elements was that India, when went for war against certain countries, it used its diplomacy. For example, when India went for war in 1965 against Pakistan, and later in 1971, and subsequently in 1999 against Pakistan, it used its foreign policy to convince the world why these wars were against Indian interest, why these wars were were a case of aggression, and why India had to fight this war to somehow avert aggression against the country. In 1962, India was attacked by China. It used its foreign policy to tell the world the aggressive designs of China, how it promoted or how it supported China in different international forums, China supported China's membership for United Nations Security Council, how it tried to consolidate a group of different developing countries, but China did not pay heed to it. China did not pay any attention to India's intention, India's feelings towards developing countries. At that time, China was just developing. Now it is considered a rising power, but in 50s and 60s, China was just developing, and India always supported China. So it explained to the world, and at that time it got support from even United States and other Western countries. Soviet Union also supported India, although many people criticized that Soviet support was not on the expected line. It tried to choose between friend and brother. So, okay, these issues will be daunting always. There is no black and white line in foreign policy. So, these are there, but India tried to use its foreign policy for all these goals. And again, 99, we really succeeded our foreign policy. Our foreign office succeeded in convincing the world about what Pakistan did. And when we tested our nuclear device, at that time also we explained the world and that what was the need, what were requirements for going nuclear. So, this is how we have been supporting our foreign policy has been supporting our national interest, security interest. Now, I come to second point, economic interest. How it is supporting economic interest. So, we again I told we went to the world with in initial years. Initial years we wanted aid, We wanted to work with different countries, and during those times, basically we wanted to project, or you can say we wanted to use our poverty, our backwardness, or you can say our undeveloped, or you can say developing, whatever you want to call it, status, and the entire foreign policy was operated on that line. But over the years it had changed. Now we are basically marketing our prosperity, our increasing middle class. Now we are telling the world that we have got huge big middle class, and our this foreign policy has become, basically it is has become, as you can say, seller, you can say marketeer of this new class. Now we are saying that we have got huge technical class, software power, we have got software class. So this software class is being basically just marketed all over the world. So this is a new dimension which is taking place, a new I should say new aspect of India's foreign policy. But again, what is the change and what is the continuity? The change is that from poverty now we are selling prosperity, but continuity is that we are still realizing that promotion of economic interest, promotion of well-being of the people is still the goal of India's foreign policy. You can say you can prioritize whether it is number 1 or number 2, it depends. Some like this time the current Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, is believed to be promoting economic interests, and so Indian foreign policy is supposed to take the more of for economic dimension. But on depending on occasions, when really India requires that its economic security interest is really taken care of or promoted worldwide, then the focus, or you can say emphasis of foreign policy may change. So it depends on the situation. Again, in the initial years, we were emphasizing that the consolidation of, or you can say grouping of developing countries is the best way to promote India's national interest, economic interest. And we promoted forums like G77 and like that. And we talked about new international economic orders, South-South dialogues. So all these were dominating the foreign policy discourse of not only Indian policy makers, or you can say Indian government, but also Indian strategic community, Indian foreign policy community, academicians, everywhere we talked in that way. So now we are talking about globalization, and there was a big debate. There was a big debate how whether or how we should shift to adjust our foreign policy to globalization, and we succeeded in that. And now we are also we have adapted, and we have adapted our foreign policy to take maximum benefit of globalization. Again, the third issue which I would like to discuss, and third objective of national interest, is promotion of cultural interest. We have got Indian Council of Cultural Relations active in promoting our cultural heritage. We have got very rich cultural heritage, very composite. We demonstrate to the world our composite culture. We have got, since ancient period, we have something to demonstrate to the world, not only in written form, but also in visual forms. So we are marketing, we are showing to the world our cultural heritage. Buddhism is a religion, but also Buddhism has got cultural dimension. Hinduism is also religion. Hinduism has also got cultural dimension. Similarly, Islam is a religion, but Islam's Sufi aspect is also like projected to the world, at how we have got liberal Islam, which takes this Islam, this Sufism attracts people from all faiths, and how people go there. So our foreign policy with Incredible India kind of campaign shows to the world our cultural heritage. It attracts our visitors. They come and see our whatever cultural sites, you can say ancient sites, medieval sites, even some of the modern sites. And now our Bollywood is being exported, and foreign policy plays a very important role. So these are and through this cultural interest we maintain a link to the world. It is basically not in the forefront, but it helps our other interests also. Cultural interest directly also is promoted by foreign policy, and after promoting cultural interest, we promote other economic and security interests. When we attract the world, we attract even our adversary. Like you can remember Asif Ali Zardari, when he came to India and he visited Ajmer Sharif. It made a big event, and we showcased like this is our heritage, and it really helped in striking a rapport with the Pakistani society, and they say that yeah, we culturally we could work together, we have got resemblances. So this helps in reducing tension and indirectly promoting security interests. Similarly, political interests. How foreign policy promotes political interest? Again, I would like to take you to the situation in 1940s, when we got our independence, and other countries were also getting independence. India was championing democracy. India was championing anti-colonialism, anti-imperialism, and it wanted that world should adopt these ideals, especially developing countries, and it was using, and it was in fact pushing these ideas to the world, to those countries which had colonized several African and Asian countries and Latin American countries. So it was challenging these countries, and we failed at our other goals also, other objectives of political objectives of world peace may be promoted through that. So still we are believing there is still continuity, that there should not be any anti-imperialist doctrine. Much later, when we were in the forefront of anti-apartheid movement, last place was South Africa, and India was quite active in getting that anti-apartheid structure, ruling structure dismantled. So India was appreciated worldwide for this kind of role which it had played. Now I come to the regional cooperation. We are talking big, but it doesn't mean that we are not paying attention to our own region. Our own region is quite important for us, and our foreign policy takes care of our surroundings also, Pakistan and other countries which are in a way problems, but we want to integrate them, so that I will come later. And in last point, objective of Indian national interest is promotion of Indian diaspora. Because of globalization, and even before that, we have got something called people of Indian origin, PIO, or Bharatvanshi, they are also called. And now we have got a new concept called non-resident Indians. These people are basically Indians. They bring funding for India, they send remittances to India, but they face several problems. So now Indian foreign policy has got this dimension of safeguarding interest of our Indian diaspora is also one of the biggest, you can say, objectives of Indian foreign policy. Now we can ask the question, how this foreign policy is made? So it is just Prime Minister comes and takes the decision, and how this continuity and change is ensured. So actually we have got very complicated process of arriving at the decision. A prime personality, of course, is an important factor. Ideology of the ruling party is, of course, an important factor. But there are several other determinants. There are several other factors also. We talked about different objectives. So these objectives, promotion of these objectives, are principal determinants of India's foreign policy. Because of these objectives, because of the new situation arising in the world, our foreign policy is changed or shaped, or you can say adapted to cater to the needs. So these interests manifested in different dimensions are the principal determinants of Indian foreign policy. The second is, of course, personality, I will say, and then geopolitical, the place where we are located is also quite important. Our Indian foreign policy, foreign policy is shaped by the place where we are. We have to think about China all the time. We have to think about how we can promote our interest vis-a-vis Pakistan, Bangladesh. Sea route is there, maritime security. For maritime security, we have to really work on our foreign policy. Here I would like to just emphasize a couple of points. Initially we talked about Indian Ocean as a zone of peace. During the Cold War, militarization was taking place and we wanted demilitarization of Indian Ocean. And at that time the entire foreign policy was oriented towards seeing that Indian Ocean does not become the theater of war or theater of arms accumulation. But when Cold War was ended and when the Cold War structure got dismantled, then Indian Ocean was seen as a place for new opportunities for India. Sea lane protection and several other issues, interests were perceived, and the world expected us to guard that sea lanes because it is the route. It is the route which is used by East Asian countries to get supply of oil from West Asia. This is also the route on which is used for trade and several other transportation of different items. This is also the route which is unfortunately used by pirates. This is also the route which is used by arms smugglers, smugglers of weapons of mass destruction. So the world see that India, while promoting its objectives without contradicting India's foreign policy objectives, can just adapt or you can just slightly reorient its policy to meet new challenges, new economic opportunities and new security challenges. So this is how we are using our geopolitical advantages also. Similarly, we are located near West Asia, the zone of conflict. So many countries see that India can play a very important role in the disturbed West Asia, or sometimes in disturbed zone of Southeast Asia, something like when Myanmar was in trouble, then and still there are problems. Then the world wanted India to play an active role because of its geopolitical situation. And Indian foreign policy, one may say that slightly was hesitant to take a very proactive role, and still it is there, it's a bit hesitant, but it is still doing some role, it is playing some role in conflict and mitigating conflict in these areas. So this is how our foreign policy was expected to play an important role. When proliferation network, proliferation network means the chain, the supply chain, you can say, the chain that carried or that transacted weapons of mass destruction from East Asia to West Asia. And this is known as famous AQ Khan or Pakistan based proliferation network. When it started operating and when still the countries from East Asia want India to play an active role, Indian foreign policy needs to be catered to play a more proactive role because of its geopolitical situation, because that network passes through South Asia, or you can say Indian Ocean. So these are some of the instances I am quoting to make the point that Indian foreign policy is largely shaped by geopolitical interests. India sometimes takes advantage of its geopolitical realities, sometimes other countries expect it to play a more important role. And as I told you, the process, we have got a decision making process. These demands from outside are put inside the process, and when we find that it is suitable for our national interest, we adopt such some of the demands and we include it in our foreign policy. So this is how we are managing it. Now the second feature of Indian foreign policy is basically it's a matter of central government. Why I am raising this issue? Because in recent years you may have found that West Bengal or Tamil Nadu have been raising demands and they have been resisting some of the moves of Indian foreign policy. I would like to clarify here that despite all these demands of states, central government is still the authority for foreign policy. But India is a democratic country. It has to, it's any policy, not just foreign policy, but any policy has to take care of interest of our population. It has to, it cannot be, our policy, foreign policy cannot be in isolation. It has to promote our national interest, and demand of West Bengal or demand of Tamil Nadu are also part of broader Indian national interests. So no, all the states have got their rights to make demands, but it is the central government, the Indian Parliament, that takes the final call. So there is nothing unusual about it, and there is the complaint that a state has started dictating India's foreign policy is not absolute, is not correct perhaps, because these states have got their rights to make demands as any other interest groups or any other groups have got all their rights to give representation to the government to promote its interests. So same way the different Indian states are doing. So there is nothing unusual, because they have to, these states are elected, the governments of these states are elected, and even they have to articulate interests of their population, and this is part of that process. So this is how I want to, this is why I want to maintain, point out this issue, this feature, because this is being talked about. Another feature of Indian foreign policy is its 5 principles, that is called Panchashila, and it is continuing. There is no change in it, and these 5 principles or Panchashila are mutual respect for other nations' territorial integrity and sovereignty, non-aggression, non-interference in internal affairs, equality and mutual benefit, and peaceful coexistence. And these 5 principles are applied not only to India's neighbors, but to the entire world. We don't interfere in any country's sovereignty. We don't interfere in the internal matter of any country. Some may ask the question, and this question some foreign critics continuously ask, what about our role in Bangladesh, formation of Bangladesh, or what about Indian peacekeeping operation, peacekeeping force, or what we did in Maldives? I would like to point out here that whether it was Sri Lanka, IPKF or Maldives, we went on the invitation of the governments of those 2 countries. Bangladesh case was completely different. There was a complete chain level. We were facing problems, refugees were coming, so we had to take some action. But it was the aggression of Pakistan which really led to the war. It was not that we just straight away went for war. It was Pakistan which we were putting pressure on Pakistan, because we were getting refugees from what is now Bangladesh. So this is not that we just went and interfered and we got a country carved out. It was a product of circumstances, and circumstances were complicated by the Pakistani government of that time. So this is how we see the situation in Bangladesh and the formation of Bangladesh. So now the issue is coming, what is the real nature, continuity and change? How should we see this continuity and change? My argument is that is this evolution. We have evolved our policy. Our foreign policy has got evolved. It is it has evolved according to circumstances. The basic features have remained the same. Only it has, the change is in the nature of evolution. Change is not in the nature of rupture. This is what I see and how I perceive, and this is the, in a way, fact also of India's foreign policy. We still want promotion of a non-violent world order. We want world peace and harmony. We want dialogue to resolve, and this is applicable to not only to our neighborhood, but also to the other parts of the world. We support dialogue of civilizations. When about a couple of decades ago, I should say, Huntington talked about clash of civilization, and several policy makers and academicians started talking that now the foreign policies of the countries of the world would be shaped on the line of clash of civilization. But we at that time supported the initiative taken by Iran that no, it should be the dialogue of civilization. So Indian foreign policy basically supported dialogue of civilization. Now we also support United Nations and other international organizations for resolution of conflicts. We are seeking that membership of United Nations Security Council. We want that there should be democratization of the decision-making bodies of United Nations, and there should not be just perpetuity of just 5 countries as the permanent members of Security Council. When we are talking about globalization and global governance, we want that this Cold War, the structure was created in the initial years of the Cold War, you can say initial years of the post-Second World War, needs to be adapted. It should reflect the current reality, and India should also be made the member. And India has been campaigning for at least more than a decade for the membership of Security Council with 4 other countries, which are called G4, with Japan, with Germany and Brazil. So these 4 countries have constituted, and they have succeeded in explaining why this United Nations is to be democratized and why all these 4 countries are to be included. It's true that a few more countries may be included in it, but as of today, India's foreign policy is just focused on G4, but it may be just adapted, or it may evolve to include a few more countries. And here I would like to say that, of course, G4 was formed during Mr. Manmohan Singh's government, but there is no principled opposition before that by the Vajpayee government also, and I don't think that there will be any major change even during the Modi's government also. What it may have a couple of or one country from African continent in the grouping. So this is maximum I can foresee. Which country it is, only time will decide which country will join the G4 grouping. But the objective, the idea of democratization of United Nations Security Council will certainly continue during this government. Another institution which India has been focusing over the year is the security institution like Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, because after the dismantling of chemical weapons by India, it wants that all other countries should also, those who are possessing chemical weapons, should also sacrifice or you can dismantle their chemical weapons and work for international cooperation and make peaceful use of chemistry. So this is what India has been emphasizing. International Atomic Energy Agency is also quite important for Indian foreign policy, and it wants this IAEA, which is to play an important role in resolving several issues like relating to Iran and promotion of peaceful use of nuclear energy. So these are other institutions, international organizations which have got quite important. And at the regional level, we want that SAARC is revived, And in that, when SAARC was formed by our then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, when he was instrumental in getting SAARC set up, established, it was perceived that, or it was just conceived that it will be an institution to promote regional peace, it will be an institution to promote regional prosperity, economic well-being of the people of the region. But somehow, because of politics of the region, you can say South Asia, it did not take off. The current Prime Minister, when he was taking oath, he had invited some of the SAARC countries, almost all SAARC countries, and some couple of heads of the government or state could not come because of prior appointments or occupations, but all sent their representatives, and it was again perceived that SAARC will be activated and it will become a vehicle of growth in the region. So we are hoping that in the coming years, if Pakistan behaves properly, SAARC may again become very important. But these are the institutions through which India has been operating. But for world peace, India has been emphasizing disarmament, and it wants that there is no role, there is nothing called regional disarmament. There is always global disarmament, and there is the disarmament must have an international character. So this is one of the focus points or focal points of Indian foreign policy. It said that new weapons of mass destruction cannot be contained regionally, and it has to have a global character. So that's why it promoted and it even signed and ratified Chemical Weapons Convention. It signed and ratified Biological and Toxin Weapons Convention. When it comes to nuclear weapons, it says that there is nothing called South Asia nuclear weapons free zone. India has not been supporting the idea of regional nuclear weapons free zones, because for two principal reasons. First, the region in which India is located for security purpose cannot be just called South Asia, because there is China, there are other countries in Southeast Asia where some security dynamics are existing and which may complicate Indian security situation. So South Asia could not be the security region of India. China has to be included in this region, and other countries from Southeast Asia should also be included. Now we are witnessing several problems in West Asia and Central Asia. So now again the strategic community is talking about the expanded region for Indian security. So now we are talking not just China and Southeast Asia, even Central Asia and West Asia form the regional region for Indian security. So these are some of the complications. And second, which I have been emphasizing, that weapons of mass destruction, especially nuclear, have got global reach. So you cannot just dismantle a small nuclear weapons or arsenals of a small region and expect that there will be peace in the world and there will be no hegemony. So nuclear weapons should not be playing a hegemonic role, which India has been emphasizing. It supports global nuclear disarmament. It should be negotiated in conference on disarmament. Universal, it should be universal. It should be verifiable, and it should be non-discriminatory. So these are the principles, or these are the parameters on which India wants the world to have any kind of nuclear disarmament. And it has been campaigning for that. And now some may ask the question, and especially the international community asks the question, if India is so much committed to the ideal or the goal of nuclear disarmament, why did it have nuclear weapons itself? So we had nuclear weapons, we tested nuclear devices in 1998, May 1998, because the world was not paying any attention to our campaign. And Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which was a discriminatory treaty, just legitimized nuclear weapons in the hands of 5 nuclear weapon countries, namely United States, United Kingdom, France, Russia and China. And we have got security complications with problems with China, and China was also not dismantling. And this NPT, which was for a short duration, was indefinitely extended in 1995. And so India thought that its security imperative, or you can say its security option, is getting closed by just staying away. So it conducted tests. But again, I would like to emphasize that despite becoming a nuclear weapon country, India did not abandon the goal of nuclear disarmament. It is still championing this goal, and it maintains and it feels that Indian security can be best ensured in a world without nuclear weapons. So a world without nuclear weapons is still the goal of Indian foreign policy. It is still, this policy is still continuing. But for security, we have to maintain our nuclear arsenals, and we have to conduct some tests of our ballistic missiles and cruise missiles. So this has been continuing. So, but once the world starts dismantling nuclear weapons, we will definitely join it. And this is our foreign policy goal, and we succeeded in explaining it to the world. In initial years, yes, there were several questions. Some non-aligned countries questioned it. Some of our friendly countries, which do not possess nuclear weapons, questioned it. But when we explained our foreign policy, succeeded in explaining the security imperative of India, why we had it, and still we are with them for disarming, for nuclear disarmament, they got convinced. It is one of the successes of Indian foreign policy. We also explained to the world that our policy is basically non-aggressive. We have a doctrine. That doctrine talks about credible minimum deterrence. Our doctrine talks about, nuclear doctrine talks about no use against non-nuclear weapon country, no first use, and our doctrine also talks about that there will be civilian leadership which will be controlling our nuclear arsenals, and we will review the situation in a strategic environment, and only then we will have our nuclear weapon option exercised, and only when we are attacked by nuclear weapons or weapons of mass destruction we will be using. So this is how Indian foreign policy has explained our doctrine, and the world is now convinced about the non-aggressive design of Indian nuclear weapons, and they believe that Indian nuclear arsenal is a defensive arsenal. So there is no aggressive design in it. So now there are some debate occurring what kind of shape our foreign policy is taking. Is it moving towards realism, or it is still Nehruvian stroke idealist? In reality, even Nehru was never a pure idealist. As he discussed, he had our national interest in mind. We were a developing country. We did not have a very strong military base or backup to join the Cold War. We had a big population which needed development, this population just did not need spending in armaments. So he stayed away. So it should be seen as a good combination, a balance of realism and idealism. Many people believe that in fact Indian foreign policy took realist turn with Mrs. Indira Gandhi. It is also not purely true. Indira Gandhi also continued the old policy of balancing realism and idealism, and other prime ministers also did the same, other governments also did the same. Vajpayee was considered an idealist person, but he was the prime minister who conducted nuclear test. He was the prime minister who really conducted, or you can say conducted in the increased range of Agni missile tests. So he was aware, and he was the prime minister who had who had to get into war with Pakistan because Pakistan had attacked India. So once we are attacked, we have to retaliate, and this has been the policy, and this has been the guiding principle of Indian foreign policy, that strike a balance between realism and idealism. Now, second dominant debate which is taking place is, has India shed or abandoned its non-alignment policy, and is joining United States and basically aligning with United States these days? This is also not true. Even in 1970s, several critics argued that Mrs. Gandhi has basically aligned with Soviet Union. It has tilted, and the entire non-alignment was accused of getting tilted towards Soviet bloc and socialist bloc. But these are critics points. In reality, it is not true. Now people are talking, when we just had BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa summit, and which the new development bank was kind of operationalized, and we are talking about Asian infrastructure bank which may come. So suddenly these are not indicating towards aligning with United States. Our foreign policy is still autonomous, and we are taking decisions on the basis of our national interest. China is a security challenge for us, but we are not hesitating to work with China on economic matters, on trade issues and many other environmental issues. So we are basically not supporting any new alignment or new alliance. Sometimes people say alliance of democracies. Yes, of course, we are a democratic country, and we want other countries also to have democracies, because in a democratic setup, the voice of people is heard, and we believe that this makes the governance more effective, more representative, and it should be adopted. But and in fact, India had also contributed to the democracy fund, which was constituted with the help of United States, but India never actively went to promote democracy, interfered in any country and change its government or its regime. It is against it. It wants that its people should take the decision. The people of that particular country should take the decision to change or to continue with any government. We would prefer democracy, but we are not going to play any proactive role in changing any regime. So even the idea of alliance of democracies, which was promoted by some, is also not correct. And during the President Bush time, neo-conservatives pushed this idea, alliance of democracies all over the world, but we did not subscribe to that. We of course supported that democracy should be there. Another issue is sometimes people say that alliance of countries, like-minded countries, to fight against terrorism. This kind of alliance of course we can join, but this is a completely different alliance. It is an alliance to fight terror. But even India did not join this kind of alliance, although it supported any such initiative. But there was nothing called there is nothing called alliance technically, I should say. There is another criticism of Indian foreign policy, it's feeble foreign policy. And some of our foreign critics are saying that Indian foreign policy is not robust. And many expected that the Modi government will adopt the robust foreign policy. This is also a bit misleading. We have to be very careful that we should not get into this debate of feebleness or robustness of democracy, of our foreign policy. Our foreign policy should be non-aggressive. It should promote our national interests, and it should work with other countries of the world, and there should be general prosperity all over the world, and there should be world peace. It should not be just assertive. Of course, we have to take care of our national security interests. It doesn't mean that we have to be aggressive towards our goal. So we have to be just. Our foreign policy should be fair. It should not be feeble or robust. It should be a fair foreign policy and effective foreign policy. And we can work about our institutions, we can work about our ideals. So, we can work on that, and we can see the challenges which are coming, and we can meet those challenges. One of the challenges is institutional restructuring of foreign policy establishment. I agree with this argument that there should be more specialists inside the foreign policy establishment. There should be more non-foreign policy. I am using the word non-foreign policy, means I am saying that those who are trained diplomats, professional diplomats. So there should be more and more people who are from outside this framework of trained diplomat or something like that. So there should be people from other streams, like from business, from science, from literary, from think tanks. So all these people should contribute more to not just foreign policy making process, but should enrich foreign policy institution, foreign policy establishment. Another challenge which is coming about the training of personnel. So that and the number of personnel, we must increase the number of foreign policy personnel, because our headquarters are suffering from the size of the people who manage it. Several divisions have got 5 or 6 people taking decisions. They are overburdened, they are under stress. So this number should be increased, and these people should be trained. They should be trained more and more for new challenges which are facing India. They should be trained to have better ideas about how to devising other options for foreign policy. And in the last, I would like to say that we are setting a new course in our nationhood, and in this course we definitely need to have a 21st century foreign policy and establishment, foreign policy institution, foreign policy personnel. Continuity and change will be the hallmarks, but the evolution will be the real feature of the Indian foreign policy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for delivering such a nice lecture. My question is that at this stage, does India require to adopt a balanced approach while maintaining the relationship with the foreign countries, if you talk about the international relationship? Do you feel so?
Yes, we have to. Otherwise, what will happen? We may unnecessarily get into conflict and will be dragged into conflict. And this is not a good situation for us, because as Prime Minister Modi has been emphasizing and pointing out, that what we need is development. So we should not waste our resources on just siding with one country or another. We can help these countries to enter into dialogue. We can come and we can make both of them sit there. But balanced approach is must. We should not just be seen aligning with one country. Call it non-alignment or you don't call it non-alignment. You can champion Asia. At the same time, you need to work with United States. You cannot just abandon United States. The same way, you cannot ignore China. China is a rising economy. The whole world is looking towards China. So we have to work with China without sacrificing our interests, without sacrificing our territorial integrity. And in recent years, in different informal meetings, I believe China is prepared to take care of India's territorial interest. It maintained this, yes, India has got very serious case in its territorial claims. So we are hoping that China just doesn't say all these things informally. It comes out openly and it comes out officially and settle the border on just basis, on fair and equitable, and fair basis, not equitable is not the right word. And to do that, China should first vacate the territory it has occupied in Pakistan occupied Kashmir. In that part, China has ceded some of, Pakistan has ceded some of our territory to China. So what China can do to build confidence with India, this should be the first stage. It should get out of that region, and then we can talk, and India can also work with it, and India can increase trade interactions, India can have different scientific interactions, we can have even nuclear energy development, same joint program, we can have multilateral nuclear fuel cycle in Asia, Asiatom, which is being championed by different countries. I mean, there are more than 12 proposals for Asiatom, so, and China and India can work for that. So what I am saying, that India can work with Pakistan, India can work with China, India can work with United States, with Russia, with Brazil, with African countries, with Latin American countries, with other Asia Pacific countries, with Japan, with South Korea. So this is how we have to evolve our foreign policy.
That means you want to say that there should be a to and fro motion between the two countries if we talk about the policies as alone or development as alone.
Yes, of course, there will be reciprocity. Without mutual promotion of mutual interest, no policy can be sustained. So definitely there will be to and fro. China should not expect unilateral concessions from us. We cannot give. It is, no country can afford to give that. We have got our very strong territorial claims, and China has to realize that this, and it has informally, I am told that it has started realizing that India has got very strong claim over its territory and the area which has been occupied by China, and it knows that, and it tells also to different groups that it is basically the conflict on this point is proving useless, because of that you are basically eclipsing, you are basically hampering development's progress potential in other aspects of the relationship. So hope it realizes, once China realizes, then Asian century is matter of time. Then we will have Asian century, and we can really realize the Asian aspirations which is dreamed for long, for several decades by different leaders of Asia.
If in common terms we talk about, for the general public we talk about international relationships, can we say that it is directly proportional to the international politics?
Yes, in relationship is, as the word suggests, it is relationship. It is interactive aspect of the nations and different institutions. Politics is the dynamics that guides the relationship, the relations. So I will not say that it is quite proportional, sometimes it may be disproportional, but politics at times decides the relationship, sometimes it fails to decide the relationship. Like for example, if we talk about Cold War politics, it decided the relationship of different countries. But in several other aspects, I would not say that really the politics decided the relationship. It remained unaffected, despite all the politics which was existing, ideological politics.
You laid very important points, and very important thing that is ultimate, the goal is the relationship, whether we hold a ear from the one side or the another side. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for being with us in this EduSet lecture of ours, and hope in future also we would be able to talk more on the international relationships. Thank you, sir. Thank you so very much.